What's going on, everyone? In this video I will be doing a summary of the volume 7 of the Tensura light novel. In order to make it easier for you guys to understand everything, since the manga has covered this volume, I will be using the images as a reference to paint a better picture of the events for you guys while we still have them, because once we reach light novel only territory, we will not be as lucky. Now, some of these things were changed in the order of the light novel, like chapter 1 is covered in the spot of chapter 3, but nonetheless it is covered. Some things that didn't have significant importance were skipped. For example, in the light novel it's talked about how Diablo arrived at Falmouth by carriage and killed a lot of people in the process. The manga totally skips all that, but again, it's small details that at the end of the day is pretty irrelevant to the story, so I'm gonna leave it out. Now let's start with a recap. After Rimuru became a demon lord, he sent Diablo over to Falmouth to try to help with the political relations. Laplace infiltrated the Western Holy Church and was found by Hinata, so he runs away, encountering Roy Valentine and killing him in the process. Walpurgis' banquet culminated with Clayman being defeated and Rimuru naming the remaining 8 demon lords into Octagram. Now, fair warning, this has a lot of politics. Now with that, let's begin. First off is the prologue. Laplace tells everyone in the Harlequin Alliance that Clayman is dead. They're all very upset, and Footman tries to fight Laplace. Casalim and Yuki are actually very surprised of everything that's been going on, and before they decide on what to do, Yuki mentions that he has a plan. After Walpurgis ended, Rain and Misery actually served some food, since it actually was a banquet and they had a dinner party. Rimuru acts like a big brother to Milim and doesn't let her drink alcohol, even though she is older than him by thousands of years. Liam Cromwell and Luminous Valentine actually left before the dinner party started. We switch over to Hinata's perspective. We see that her goal is to create an equal society without strife or quarrel, somewhere where everyone can live happily. And we see she actually considers Valentine her god. Roy Valentine seems to be waiting for Hinata. We find out Roy Valentine actually has a twin brother called Louis, who is the one speaking to her, and he tells her that Roy was killed the night before, being the fight we saw with Laplace and Roy Valentine. They seem to be waiting for Luminous to let her know what has happened, and so we get a flashback. Hinata found the truth, that the god of the church she worships are none other than the twin vampires. They fought, and she was actually strong enough to kill both of them, thinking that she had won, only for Luminous to show up and reincarnate both of her subordinates. She heals Hinata and asks her what the meaning of evil and justice are, and if Hinata should be the one to judge that. She gives Hinata a week to beat her confidence, then pass the trial of the 7 luminaries, and then she will fight Hinata. Hinata was able to actually do all of this using her unique skill Usurper, which allows her to steal power from opponents stronger than her. She easily beats Hinata and brings her back, and we understand why Hinata considers Luminous her god. Then we go back to the present time, and Luminous catches Louis and Hinata up with Walpurgis. Luminous is concerned with Veldra being resurrected and Rimuru being a demon lord. Louis suggests making the Jura forest seem like the enemy, but Luminous disagrees because Rimuru has the idea of making a nation all can live happily, including humans, and Hinata suggests dealing with them. Luminous thinks that getting rid of Rimuru is possible, but Veldra is definitely a no. She thinks back to the time when Veldra was just rampaging dragon and says she doesn't want to lose Hinata. Hinata is worried, however, how people might take this as new nation, meaning the Jura Forest, since it's a nation of monsters, and monsters are supposed to be the common enemy of mankind. But it was never stated monsters are the enemy of God, so Luminous thinks that can be a workaround. Hinata is worried about the Great Tenma War, an event that occurs every 500 years that will be explored later, but it's essentially angels attack developed cities and destroy them. Luminous suggests leaving them alone, but Hinata is worried Rimuru holds a grudge since she tried killing him, but she remembers Rimuru wanted to speak with her, so she suggests having a conversation. Hinata notices she might have been tricked by someone to help Laplace infiltrate, and makes her even more curious if this was Rimuru's idea or not. We flip back to the Jura Forest when Rimuru is back from Walpurgis. Diablo is actually back and reports he was successful in overthrowing Falmouth. We get a flashback to the conversation with the king of Falmouth and the nobles. Diablo made sure to force Shogo, the guy who was possessed by the strongest human Majin. He explained Veldra was revived by eating all of the armies between both nations. They made it seem like Rimuru saved them and say that Yom is the only one able to persuade Rimuru and says he has a potion to heal the king. The nobles don't want to listen to commoners, but Yom explains that the storm dragon Veldra could easily destroy their nation, except Rimuru can negotiate with Veldra if needed. One of the nobles gets pissy and insults Rimuru, which Diablo doesn't like one bit, so Rasen intervenes and freezes the guy. With a bit more convincing, they decide to ally with the Juras Federation. Diablo then uses the potion to heal the king and reads a message from Rimuru giving Falmuth 3 options. 1. The king steps down and pays war reparations. 2. Submit to become a vassal state. Or 3. Continue the war. And Diablo gives them 1 week to decide what they are going to do, and we go back to the present time. Diablo says that they should be forced to pay 10,000 gold coins. Rimuru is worried that this will bankrupt them, but that's actually Diablo's plan. He explains that the 3 options, only one is valid. They have no army anymore, so they cannot continue the war. The nobles will refuse to become a vassal state, so the only option is to pay. This will force the nobles versus the royals, which they will use as a chance to put Yom in the royal side. So if there is a civil war, Rimuru's army will help him make Yom king. Back in Falmuth, they are discussing about what to do when they get interrupted by a message from the guild. It informs them that the demon lords are now called Octagram, with Rising Star Rimuru taking over the spot of Clayman, which makes them decide to pay just like Diablo had planned. The next day, Shuna and Zoe come back with Adelman, and they explain what happened on their side as well as Benimaru. After some talk, Diablo mentions the Holy Church is summoning the priest. Rimuru remembers this is where Hinata lives, and although he thinks it might be a problem to get along, it's possible it can be done. Gabiru returns and gives a letter to Rimuru from Milim. The letter basically states that she is going to bring her people next time she comes over, and she wants Rimuru's people to teach them how to cook. He also speaks with Hakaru, who tells him about some gravekeepers that found at Clayman's castle. Rimuru then, with all of his officials, have a meeting, and he announces that he has finally been crowned a demon lord. They talk about his domain expanding and that the Jura forest is bigger than he actually thought, which might include monsters that don't even know he exists yet. So in order to get everyone that is within his domain, Rimuru has the idea to throw a festival. Rimuru and Diablo start talking again one more time about the plan with Falmuth. Then after some talk, they start realizing that there is someone that is controlling all of the moves. The same person as Hinata put to fight Rimuru instigated the issue with the country of Falmuth and controlled Clayman. We go back to Hinata's perspective, and we are introduced to a new character, Sade. There also seemed to be a meeting of the Holy Emperor's twin wings, talking about the resurrection of the Storm Dragon and the birth of a new Demon Lord. We got another flashback of Hinata completing the trials of the 7 luminaries. Then they start discussing the certain circumstances where one of them, Sade, blames Hinata for everything that's going on, and the rest are defending her. They start talking about the situation and Falmuth, and Hinata thinks that she has figured out Rimuru's plan to drive the country into a civil war. One of the knights seem to be concerned that Veldra is back and he might attack, but Hinata says that the god Luminous has mentioned it's not going to happen because Rimuru is able to control Veldra. That makes them uneasy and brings up more reason to get rid of Rimuru, but Hinata explains it's better if they don't. They are under worries that Hinata might be the target for Rimuru, who since she tried to kill him, and Hinata mentions she will go and talk to him. We see the priest think back to what Rimuru did and looks horrified, and they think of him not only as a demon lord anymore, but a true demon lord, like Milim or Gi. Hinata speaks to the priest through telepathy, and the 7 luminaries show up behind him. They are interested in listening to the message from the priest, which is a message from Rimuru to Hinata, asking her to fight in a 1v1. After some discussion, Hinata agrees to fight him, and the 7 luminaries grant her the Dragon Buster sword, as the meeting is adjourned. A few days later, Rimuru gets informed Hinata is traveling alone, heading towards Rimuru. The priest is shown being confused of the message, and before he lets Diablo know of what happened, is stopped by a mysterious figure. Geld is tasked with recreating Milim's castle, and then we move back to Rimuru receiving a report on Hinata. She is coming with a small party. Adelman gives Rimuru some information on the Luminaries, the Temple Knights, and the Crusaders. Diablo then interrupts the meeting to inform that the priest was killed and they are blaming Rimuru for it. Because of that, the Hollow Knights are going to interfere with the civil war Diablo had planned for Falmuth. Diablo is advised to continue the mission and find out who did it. to which he vows to interrogate them until someone comes forward. So A interrupts with an emergency message. 100 soldiers embarked from Ingracia, heading towards Tempest. Rimuru orders Benimaru to prepare his army to defend themselves, but try to avoid casualties as much as possible. We go back to Hinata and her travels. They stop at a town and Hinata finds a shop that sells ramen, so she wants to go and eat some. They all order some, and while her companions have no idea what ramen is, Hinata starts eating her bowl. She's actually quite happy about it. They find out that this actually comes from Rimuru's domain, and after eating, Hinata realizes that the last time she was there it was a ghost town, but now it's full of people. Her interest in Rimuru rises and she is determined to talk to him even more. Sometime after, we see that there's a group of people planning something behind Hinata's back. One of them being Granbel Rozo, speaking with a Lord Damrata, the merchant who gave Hinata false information. It seems the Eastern Empire is planning to take over the West by taking Hinata and the Western Holy Church out of the picture. Turns out that Damrata is not just a random arts merchant, he is one of the leaders of the underground organization named Cerberus. We also find out that the little girl sitting on the old man, it's named Maribel. Their plan is to have Hinata busy with Rimuru while they play their hand in Falmouth and force him to be in their debt. Their plan is for the Rosso family to take over the entire world. We switch back to Hinata's expedition and everyone seems to be in a state of shock at this state of the Jura Forest because of the roads, water fountains, and even an inn for them to stay. They even go as far as calling Rimuru a damn good king as opposed to a demon lord. Then soon after, Hinata seems to get telepathic communications. It's Nikolaos, one of her men. He lets her know that 3 battle sages are going to Falmouth and tells her to watch out for the 7 luminaries. Then the communications get cut off. She immediately reaches out to Louis Valentine, where he lets her know he did not order anybody to be deployed to Falmouth, and he not have realized that the 7 luminaries made that decision. Then the communications get cut off one more time, and they hear fighting in the distance. As it turns out, it was Rimuru himself who cut off the communication.